これがレクイエム。
What's up YouTube, it's your boy Sho back with another video, and today we're talking about Final Fantasy 16. Now, when I used to be younger, or little, or whatever you want to call it, when I used to be younger, when I would see a game get announced, I would be so excited, because to me, back then, I would feel like that game was going to come out like next week or something. And it really never came out next week. So when we got like trailers and stuff for Final Fantasy, which was then Final Fantasy 13 Versus, we got trailers and stuff for that. You know, everybody blew their mind. Like, they were so excited, they were so happy. And then, you know, we got Final Fantasy 15. So yeah. And it's not like, don't get me wrong, it's not like Final Fantasy 15 is terrible or anything. I actually made a video talking about this specific topic on how I feel, the things I feel about when it comes to, you know, Final Fantasy 15. And even though it's a good game, it could have been so much better. But I just want to say that little anecdote just to say this. For me, I'm not looking for anything special when it comes to Final Fantasy 16, because me getting my heights up with 15 kind of just ruined the whole game for me when I played it, and I kind of felt a little left out. Obviously, the DLCs that they included a little bit later on kind of helped out with the experience, but it felt like they all should have been part of the main game. It all felt like it should have been one neat package. I mean, obviously, if you buy the Royal Edition, you'll have a way better time than I did when I played the game when it first came out. So I'm not saying it's a horrible game, but you know, I'll spend too much time talking about that already. We're talking about Final Fantasy 16. Now, it actually looks similar to the way Final Fantasy 14 looks. If you never played Final Fantasy 14, it's basically an MMO. It looks amazing. To be an MMO, you know, normally when you're doing MMO, you can't have higher quality graphics because, you know, it might cause like a server strain or whatever to try to uphold that image. But the game looks amazing, and it kind of gives you that same vibe as what you seen from the Final Fantasy 16 trailer. It has that same aesthetic, you know, it has that same feeling. And for a game to have that feeling from that game, it's got to be great. The only thing that's different for me when it comes to Final Fantasy 14 is that it's obviously taking place like multiple stories. It feels like the best Final Fantasy game because, you know, it's a whole bunch of different Final Fantasy game plots. Each DLC is like a Final Fantasy game plot all rolled into one game, so you really can't compete when it comes to that. Now, if we're talking about the aesthetic of it, it looks great, you know, with like the type of clothes. And what I mean by aesthetic is like the way it looks. You know, I don't really actually know the time period that it's emulating, but I do know, for one, Final Fantasy 16 should be an amazing game. It's already looking great. I love that era that they're actually trying to, you know, portray. And, you know, that it seemed like it'd get more back to the magic and stuff. I was really disappointed in the way magic was handled in Final Fantasy 15. I liked it. I understood it. But it seemed like we're really about to get back to the heavy magic origins. You know, when you're dealing with a Final Fantasy game, you always got to deal with the fact that magic is there. There's some games that just feel like magic is kind of like a side thing rather than like the main thing. Like Final Fantasy 13, it seems like magic is just sort of a side product and stuff, you know. And it's a weird conversation to get into because it's more talking about like the Final Fantasy games as a whole. But 16, we don't really know what it's gonna contain. You know, we don't really know what it's gonna be about. I hope they don't show us a trailer and then 10 years later I'm now booting up Final Fantasy 16 after Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 8 come out. And I'm just like, what is this? This don't even look the same. Like, this looks like, now they're gladiators? Like, bro, like, come on now. Like, we don't want another Final Fantasy 13 versus situation. We don't. I mean, you guys might. I don't. I'd rather them go ahead and just... And the problem with that is that they kept switching, like, the lead developer and stuff of the game. When Final Fantasy 13/15 was coming out, so it kind of messed up everything, and they kind of had to start from scratch in the middle of production. So hopefully we can. I will wait. I don't want another Cyberpunk. I don't want another 15. I will wait for you guys to bring me a great story with great gameplay. I don't care how long it takes. As being young back in the day, I would always rush a game to come out. Now, when I've been through stuff like Cyberpunk, I do not mind. Take your time. Like, we don't want another Final Fantasy 13 versus situation. Even if you have to use that name as a placeholder, like that game should have never changed from what it was supposed to be. And I know I spent a lot of time talking about Final Fantasy 13 versus, But that's only normally because I don't really have much to talk about 16. Mainly the topic of this video is just I hope that 16 doesn't end up like 13 verses, which ends, you know, just completely scrapping everything, you know, only having half the development time because you're working with a new staff. It just was a mess, and hopefully we can continue this vision because the stuff they showed us looks really kind of Devil May Cry-ish a little bit. So I'm actually kind of curious to see more info about that game when that's actually gonna come out. Plus it's gonna be on PS5, which is a stronger system. So with that being said, guys, I'm going ahead and clock on out of here. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video.